The news first came from Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger and team president Art Rooney II had met on Tuesday, and it went well. Shereen Williams and I spent a lot of time last night trying to figure out what went well meant, Chris. But as of now, the indications are that that was the major piece toward working out an arrangement to keep Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers for one more year. And it may just be one more year, but it's at least one more year.
Right. Well, I mean, if you made me bet money, I would bet that it's one more year, but we'll see where it goes. I mean, hey, it's a big deal. There's no doubt about it. Big Ben's a Hall of Fame quarterback, won the Super Bowl 2 times. Last year, hey, there was enough good play, of course, to justify bringing him back. I think what's scary a little bit was the way they played right at the end of the year, the way he looked a little bit, and I do think he was injured. I know enough people there in Pittsburgh that have led me to believe he was banged up. The knee issue was real. If you really study him on film, you could tell there was a difference between Ben Roethlisberger in Week 15 and Ben Roethlisberger in Week 7. And I guess, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers coach, owner, whatever, you're hoping you get that first half of the year Big Ben. But I do think that's a big if. And we've talked about this many times. He plays the game very physical. He did play it very physical. He's a beat-up guy. And you do, at least I worry about him wearing out as the season goes along. And, Big Ben seems to think he's okay and he's ready to come back and play some more.
You make a great point in that regard, though, because it was confusing to say the least. Reports were emerging on a consistent basis that there were issues with and concerns regarding his knees, not just knee, but knees. But then on the injury report, there was never any disclosure late in the year that he had a knee or knees issue, which would mean he was getting no treatment from the team. He wasn't missing practice except for his habitual, which is fine, not being critical of
his
it,
Wednesday day off.
Day off, the not injury-related day off, the veteran day off that so many players around the league get. And the only way I could harmonize those two, short of the Steelers just flat out lying on the injury report, oh, by the way, in 2019 they were fined by the NFL for lying on the injury report because Ben Roethlisberger's elbow that finally gave out in Week 2 against the Seahawks had not been listed on the injury report, and they knew there was a problem. But if they aren't lying again, if they learned their lesson in 2019, it tells me that it's just something he's dealing with, right? Arthritic condition possibly in one or both knees, and that doesn't get better. I know that all sorts of fancy things happen in the offseason, stem cell treatments, guys going to Europe, but I don't know how much you can get your knee to recover if you've got arthritis in it. And I think it's a legitimate concern in 2021. And my look, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but I think both sides are going to regret this by the time we get to November or December. They're going to regret one more year. They're going to wish they hadn't done it, like Brett Favre in 2010. Well, that's what I keep coming back to.
I mean, I understand that thought. I mean, that certainly crosses my mind too. I don't think it's crazy. I guess, the big question, Mike, would be really this. To start it, would just be, what other options do they got right now? They're stuck in between a little bit. It's not like they're not going to make a play for Deshaun Watson or maybe some of the other quarterbacks that are going to be out there and, have trade demands. I don't think they can afford to do that at this point right now. They're a team that, we're seeing they're growing old in front of us. There's lots of holes. The offensive line has issues. They traded away picks a few years ago to trade up in the draft and get Devin Bush. So, they have issues as a complete football team. And I think, more or less, they probably looked at it and goes, okay, Big Ben, yep, okay, you think you're pretty good. You can play still. Okay, we know we can win games with Big Ben. We do. We know. And there's not a better option out there for them at this moment. So it's almost like, hey, he's an NFL legend. He's our guy. We're loyal. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he's also serving as maybe a Band-Aid, for lack of a better way to say it, for them to just buy some time here to build their team and then, of course, get a plan together to get the next quarterback of the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, that's right, because they can't go 20 years between franchise quarterbacks like they did between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger, even though they made it to one Super Bowl somehow without a franchise quarterback. Super Bowl 30, it was a loss to the Dallas Cowboys with Neil O'Donnell throwing 2 balls to a wide-open Larry Brown. The only problem is Larry Brown was not a Steelers receiver at the time. He was a Cowboys defensive back. Other than that 1 year, they were relevant, but they never could punch it through because you didn't have a great quarterback. You need to have a good enough quarterback. 2005, well, Ben Roethlisberger wasn't great in the Super Bowl, but he was good enough to win. But
made some plays
in the franchise guy.
Yeah, right.
They need a franchise guy.
Right.
If they're going to get to the top of the mountain again, post Ben, they have to get to work on it. They can't just wait and coast and float from one guy to the next and hope their defense will be good enough to carry them. And maybe that formula will work to a certain extent. But we saw for 20 years it wasn't good enough to get them their 5th Super Bowl. They waited a long time for the proverbial one for the thumb, or the literal one for the thumb, and they finally got it with Big Ben, and hopefully that was a lesson for them about moving forward. Last week when Kevin Colbert spoke on the matter, the Steelers GM created the impression for me that they weren't sure that it made sense to continue with Ben given the changes that the salary cap will end up forcing upon the Steelers.
Sure.
I think from Roethlisberger's perspective, there were similar concerns. Even though he was saying all the right things publicly, I think that behind the curtain he's saying, is this really a Super Bowl team? Do I really have a chance to go out the way I want to go out? I don't know what's caused him to come to the conclusion that he does. I don't think the extra $5 million in the salary cap from 175 to 180 makes enough of a difference that all of a sudden you wake up and say, Eureka, this could be 2005 all over again, and I can walk off into the sunset like Jerome Bettis did with a Super Bowl trophy. And to me, I just, if you don't think you got a reasonable shot at winning it all, that one extra year is only going to be a potential source of regret eventually. That's my concern. And I still feel at a certain level like neither side wants to be the one who's responsible for ending this. That to me is a factor in their decision to find a way to keep it going for one more year.
Well, don't you think like the dead cap money and stuff like that, like, I would think the contract situation, the dead cap money, whether he retires or not, anything like that is going to be a factor here. I think, and you add that to the matter of, wait, we're not sure. We don't have the quarterback of the future on our roster right now. I mean, as I think we both agree, we don't think Mason Rudolph's that guy. Dwayne Haskins maybe, but it's not ready right now. I mean, that they took that. They signed Dwayne Haskins going, hey, we saw this kid. He's got talent. He might be a what do they say? A diamond in the haystack, or what the heck? No, that's a needle in the haystack. What is
needle in the haystack, diamond in the rough.
Diamond in the rough, right? So
concrete line in the sand,
right? They're all good, man, it's good to be back at work. But yes, I think they're taking a shot there, just hoping that they can strike gold with Dwayne Haskins and let him develop a year and maybe learn behind Ben Roethlisberger, and you have something there. So I would think, Mike, just at base value, it would be those two things together, right? That would lead them to, all right, hey, it didn't end the way we wanted. It didn't look great at the end of the year, but there still is a lot of good players on this team, and maybe they don't want to go through the growing pains of having to get a new quarterback or do that. Maybe they do believe that they can fill in the voids and fix this team enough to where they feel like they can go back to the AFC playoffs and be one of the top seeds and still be really relevant in the AFC playoffs and maybe make a run at this.
Now, what was odd yesterday was the impression created by the initial report from Jerry Dulac that they had the meeting and it went well, because it didn't finish the thought. Well, how did it go well? Are we going to have a retirement press conference? What does it mean for it to go well from Ben's perspective, from the team's perspective? It's possible there are different definitions based upon where you're coming from as to what it means to go well. There was a statement issued by Ben Roethlisberger's agent, Ryan Toner, to Aditi Kinkhabwala of NFL Media, and here it is. They want Ben back and will contact me soon to address his cap situation. As we've shared since the season ended, we are happy to creatively adjust his contract to help them build the best team possible. A year ago, Ben wasn't sure if he could throw again, but he battled back to get 12 wins and the 8th division title of his career. They lost steam down the stretch, and that doesn't sit well for him. So the fire burns strong, and there is plenty of gas in the tank. Now, the cap number is the critical question here, and the article we posed last night indicated and suggested and analyzed the question of whether or not the Steelers can or whether they even want to pay him the $19 million he's due to make this year. Cap number $41.25 million.
Yep.
If he retires or if he's cut, it's $22.25 million. Those are from the sins of salary caps past. If they've kicked money forward into this year, the question is, what do you do with the 19? Are they going to try to get him to take less? Are they just going to take that 19, drop it down to the minimum salary of $1.075 million, take the rest of it and turn it into a signing bonus that gets spread over multiple years? You can get the salary cap number in the range of 25 or 26 that way. You still have to take the excess later. But my understanding and current belief is it's not about reducing the 19. Now, maybe they'll drop that bomb on Roethlisberger's camp today, but it's never been about reducing the 19. And if that's the case, Chris, point I made last night, this should take 5 minutes. It's not hard to take that contract and reduce the cap number this year by moving money around, by moving dollars around. If you're not taking money away from Ben Roethlisberger, it should not be difficult to do.
No, it should not. And I mean, from everything we know, Big Ben's totally up for it, right? I mean, he's got no problem.
Doesn't cost him a penny.
Right. So it doesn't make any difference to him. He'll do what he needs to do to help out the team. Of course, he's at a point in his career, like a lot of these guys, he's made a ton of money, and it's really more now about he wants one more chance to play for the big one. Now, that's what it's all about. And the big question that I think you have to think of is just, can he get you to that point? And the Steelers, I still think, are a team, Mike Tomlin, I would imagine he's going, no, I think we can still go to the Super Bowl in 2021. I'm sure a lot of those guys in that team do. With that defense, no Devin Bush this past year. Bud Dupree got hurt, and I know he's a free agent, and we'll see what happens with all that. But Big Ben, this is where, to me, it's a little different, because I've had some people text me like, well, what's the difference between Big Ben and the Drew Brees situation? Hey, both legends, Hall of Famers, awesome. I mean, just respect all around. But there is a difference to me on the play on the field, too. Big Ben can still make defenses defend the whole field. He can do that. His arm is still good enough, as we saw, even though it's not as explosive as it once was. We still saw plenty of deep passes to Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool all year long to go, okay, he can stretch the field. The biggest thing in Pittsburgh that they need to do, and I don't know whether the blame is on Big Ben here, the old offensive coordinator, or just the organization in general, they just can't play the freaking same way they played last year. They can't do that. That was unrealistic. It was almost unfair to Big Ben. And I do think he probably had a hand in that. I mean, he admitted that there was RPOs, that he kept throwing the ball and doing that. But it goes back to like what you talked about yesterday with Jerome Bettis. They never really gave an attitude or commitment to the run game early in the year. And then they got into, whoa, we're going to rely on an older quarterback to sit in the shotgun and make throws all game. So that has to change if they want this to work, at least in my opinion. And I think that's probably the next remedy they got to think about. O-line's got to improve, and we got to get a running game if you want to make it happen with Big Ben, a la Tom Brady and the Bucs. Protect them up. Let them feel good, and if there's one-on-one, I promise you, Big Ben's going to throw strikes to Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson all day long, and I think that's a part of this equation as well.
Yeah, even if Juju Smith-Schuster leaves, they've still got plenty of great receivers that Ben can target. And I think part of it, too, is, and who knows how much we'll ever find out about the discussion between Roethlisberger and Rooney, but Ben does need to meet them halfway, because we heard from enough different people that Ben was taking liberties with the play call, that Ben was changing runs to passes or the RPOs, choosing to throw when maybe the right move would have been to hand off. And part of it is Randy Fichtner, who isn't back as offensive coordinator. They brought in Matt Canada last year as the quarterback's coach. He's now the offensive coordinator. And one of the things he was bringing to the table, the jet motion, the efforts to confuse a defense with all the movement behind the line of scrimmage. Maybe you hand it off to Chase Claypool. Maybe you don't. They got away from that as the year went on. And it was just dink and dunk, short passes. And And one of the reasons for the drops that you identified was the fact that the defensive backs all knew that it was going to be a quick pass. So you tee up and you go hit the guy and knock the ball loose, and the guy starts hearing and seeing footsteps because he knows he's going to get blasted because the defense is expecting that short pass. That was not sustainable, and we saw it in the disintegration of the team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's too, what was the phrase? They became, predictable within their predictability. I mean, that's really what it was. It was like, hey, we know you're going to throw it every play, and now we know you're going to throw the play. Every play is going to be 6 yards right here, and you're going to have to jam it in there and really make high-risk throws with not so great of a reward on top of that. And as the season went along, we saw it's just everybody knew what to expect. There was not enough diversity within the offense. There wasn't enough, even if you're going to throw the ball every play, there wasn't enough schemes and things to go around to where I was going, okay, wait, they might be able to survive this. They're doing a lot of cool stuff in these formations. Wow, okay, they might be able to throw it every play. No, I would sit there and go, I've seen this route combination 6 times already, and we're in the third quarter. I've seen this play 5 times, and we're only through a quarter and a half of the football game. And within that's not fair either. So, they got to find a way that's going to work for their offense and certainly change. It just does not make sense with that defense and the way they play that they were playing that style of offense this year. It put too much pressure on the defense in too many games too, and it wasn't fair to them either.
I think the other reality at play here, too.
Yeah.
We're now 6 weeks removed from when the Steelers lost to the Browns in humiliating fashion at home in the wild card round of the playoffs. And I think that what happens is when you get into off-season mode and everyone is 0-0, that's when you go back to the lab and you start coming up with reasons why next year will be different. And as you get time and distance from the way it ended and the way the regular season fell apart down the stretch, you start coming up with reasons why next year we won't step into that same trap. Next year we'll get off to a good start and we'll finish. It becomes an echo chamber. Oh, we got this idea, we got that idea.
Right.
And you build, and it's happening throughout the league, and some cities probably never does, but it's happening everywhere. As you are isolated from the other teams and you start thinking of all the great ideas as to how to move forward, you let yourself think, you know what, we can do it. Yeah, what? Who says we can't? Why not us? And the next thing you know, you start making decisions based upon that confidence that starts to pop up in February as you get farther away from how it all went sideways on you the prior season. And I think that allowed both sides, Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger, to come to the conclusion that, yeah, let's do this again, even though I really do think, and I just think if I was a Steelers fan, if I put myself in those shoes, if I started waving the terrible towel right now, I'd say, man, there's a chance that this is a huge mistake.
It's risky. We know that. I mean, he was
risky, no biscuit.
Yeah, well, he's a car crash quarterback. It's rare to say that. I mean, but he really was. He was a car crash quarterback. That's where I feel bad for guys like Big Ben and sometimes because they had to play the game on the edge all the time for a number of years. And people aren't going to maybe understand their greatness and how good he was or other players like that because they were in, compromised situations a lot. But yet the team was like, hey, you're awesome. We don't care. You'll figure it out. You'll make a play. You'll dance around the pocket and run like Fred Flintstone like he used to and move around and people on him and throw the ball. I mean, Big Ben was amazing like that. He really was. The guy that could scramble within the pocket and yet keep his eyes downfield, as good as I've ever seen, really. You said a lot of good things there, too. Yeah, I mean, you're right. NFL teams are going to go back. They're going to reevaluate themselves. They're going to look at things. I think they're going to go, man, this happened. If that didn't happen, you're right. We can justify, maybe we would have been in a better spot, all of those type of things. But I think ultimately the other thing that they have to come back to, there's 2 things. They had to have looked back at the year and just gone, man, that was crazy that we were asking Big Ben to play this way. They have to at least have realized that we were the last team in football in running the ball, and we have one of the more older, beat-up quarterbacks in the NFL. That makes no sense when that comes out of your mouth. That doesn't even sound right. And then I think the other thing that maybe, just because I think about this, but maybe gives them that little confidence to go, wait, we can do this, is maybe they see the Bucs in the Super Bowl, and they go, wait, like, if we can protect the guy a little bit and run the ball, Big Ben could throw the post down the middle and the in cut and the deep outs and do all that too. So I think, again, with all the things we've said, lack of options, their salary cap, all of that, I think that's probably where we've been, we're led to this point, and we'll see where it goes. But I do think Big Ben can still make plays with that right arm.
One of the basic realities that I've witnessed over the years being in and around Pittsburgh, when you write them off, that's when they are the most dangerous. And it's easy to write them off going into this year, given the changes that the salary cap situation likely will cause. And maybe they'll find a way to wave the magic financial wand and work it all out. But whatever the end result, it's going to be easy to look at the Steelers and say, they're not ready to compete with the Ravens. They're not ready to compete with the Chiefs. They're not ready to compete with the Bills. They're not ready to compete with the Browns.
Yeah.
That may be the thing that starts the lawnmower for the Steelers like nothing ever did before. Getting beat by the Browns. Again, it may be unjustified confidence, but that confidence is there. And that's an excellent point. You watch the Super Bowl, and, this is a team that Mike Tomlin was working for the last time they won the Super Bowl in 2002. It's easy to say there are things we can take from what the Buccaneers did all year long, incorporate it into our game, and our aging quarterback can maybe get his hands on a Lombardi trophy and walk off into the sunset like Jerome Bettis did. That's clearly the goal. That's the motivation. That's why they're doing it. This isn't about a paycheck for Ben Roethlisberger, and this isn't about a farewell tour for the Steelers and Big Ben. And
where do they, the thing is that they're going to have to trim some fat on their roster. I mean, there's certainly some guys you look at, you take care of that situation right there, and you go, all right, that's going to give them some money. Maybe they can get out in free agency and get, a new center or, another guard, maybe a tackle, something like that to help them out. Of course, the draft is going to that. They're in no man's land for the quarterback, in my opinion, with the draft. I don't think that's going to happen. And, you look at other guys like, Joe Hayden, all right, because of course, I knew we were going to talk about this. You look at their roster, their salary cap situation. Hey, he's a guy that's cap hit $15.5 million. But if they cut him, it's only $2.9 million. They can trim a lot of money right there. That's 2 or 3 players on your roster. I mean, that's really – so they're going to have to work some magic and do some – rebuilding and things like that, and make some tough decisions, no doubt about it. But I'm not going to count the Steelers out yet. Not because of like what you said. There's just too many awesome, crazy alphas on that football team right now for me to count them out. There really is. I mean, 1, the coach is that way. 2, it's one beast after another on the defensive side of the ball. And, the receivers, decent tackle play. I mean, they're not too far off. And then you get a guy like Devin Bush back, who was really a huge blow to them last year at middle linebacker. We certainly could be sitting here next December going, hey, here's Pittsburgh. They're going to go to the playoffs. They got a chance to go to the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
You know what they desperately need? They desperately need a Franco Harris. They need a guy they draft who comes in right away and makes a huge impact in the running game, because they don't have that. And I don't know that the revolving door, James Conner, Benny Snell, whoever else they put out there, Anthony McFarland, I don't think that's going to be the answer. They need a workhorse who can. Hey, it's easy to commit to the running game when you get a guy who comes in and everyone is saying, damn, holy crap, give him the ball again. That's the way to balance the offense the way it needs to be balanced.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.